This is going to be an update video to my Harbor Freight roller conversion. And I took one of their bead rollers and I converted over. That's a video that I have posted right now. Since doing that, I've made a few more modifications. I added some mounts down below here, and those are just 1/2-inch bolts, and that holds all of the bead rolling dies. I'm going to be making some dies pretty soon, tipping dies and things like that, so probably I'll end up welding some pins on the other side as well. But for right now, I just have those, and I technically have 2 open that I can use at the bottom. I painted the bottom of the base. That wasn't done in the first video. So far, things have held up really well. I haven't used it a ton, but I've used it quite a bit, and I haven't had any problems with it. I did not make the base. The base I actually bought from my neighbor at a rummage sale, so I can't take credit for that, but just a couple of pieces of flat plate and a tube welded in the middle, so if you want to make something like that, it would be pretty easy to make. And then I just have a couple of pieces of angle iron that are sandwiched together on the bottom here to hold the bead roller to the base. So those can definitely be unscrewed, and that can be lifted off of there if you need to do that. The bracing on the side here is a definite must. That helps a lot with the twist side to side. And then that center piece, that's a heavy piece of steel that's bolted through the holes. That really helps keep things from spreading up and down, and that's a really great addition. Like I said, I took this off of the Jared Kirkpatrick video in the roller that he did for Gene Winfield, and I borrowed a couple of the ideas that he had there. So in doing the bead rolling, one of the things I wanted to be able to do was to add a jig for doing nice accurate circles, and also being able to repeat circles in the different custom work that I do. So that's what that attachment down below is. So what I have there is a 1/2-inch bolt that is in a piece of DOM tubing, and there is a roller bearing top and bottom that allows that to spin. And then on top here, I tapped down through there, I drilled down through the bolt, the head of the bolt, and I threaded that for 1/4-inch threads. So what I can do is drill a piece of a hole into a piece of sheet metal, and then I can do circles, and I'll show you that working here in a moment. The bar that's attached to, I believe that's a piece of 3/4 inch wide by 1 inch tall, and then I do have a slot milled in it. So I did that on the milling machine, and then I have the 2 bolts that sandwich it together. So when I get out to that distance, that's over a 2-foot diameter circle. I don't know if I'll ever want to do anything that big, probably not, but I did want the ability. I figured as long as I was building it this way, I might as well go out as far as I could. So slide this back in, and I'm going to stop the video real quick. I'll put the camera in the tripod and then go ahead and show you how it works. All right, I think this will give us a pretty good view of what's going on here. Right now I'm just going to leave that set right about there. Kind of guesstimate the size just for the demonstration here. And I'll go ahead and tighten these 2 nuts up. Here's my test piece, and I just have a 1/4-inch hole drilled in the center. I'm going to move this in a little bit, or I'm going to be off of the rollers. There we go. Bring this down and tighten it up. Just going to go snug on this first pass around. As I played around a little bit with it, I found that as long as the 1/4 inch bolt is snug, finger snug, it doesn't need really a wrench on there to tighten it up. So here's the rolling that I did, and these are just the flat dies that are in there right now. And I've got it's offsetting it about 1/8 of an inch, which I believe is the size these dies are set up for. So, you know, a couple of things that this can be used for. I've used it several times already just to go ahead and put a really nice line to cut out a circle out of the sheet. And when you have this fold in there, you cut this on the bandsaw with this side facing up. It gives a really nice line to follow. If you do want that edge on there, you can go ahead and flip it over the other way. And again, with this side up, you have that outer edge that you can follow. And then you already have a nice edge started here that you can either use like that or you can flip this. You could do a little more work on this and go ahead and roll that edge completely over. I haven't noticed this before. I got a little bit of a creasing here when I started out, and I think what happened is I didn't have my my top roller tight, and it slipped a little bit. So that's something that I got to make sure in the future I tighten that top roller. So I got a little crease there that would it would hammer out without any problem, but still, if I would have had that completely tight, you wouldn't start out with that problem. So that's just doing the straight. What I'll do is I'll pause the camera here for a minute, and I'll switch over to a bead and roll a bead in a piece and show you how that works. All right, for this part of the video, I've got it zoomed in. Maybe you can see a little better that way. Hopefully the previous one that I did gave you a good view. I've got a little bigger piece of metal cut this time, and I've got the 3/8 beading die in there. So I'm just going to make sure that I'm going to be inside my dies here. I didn't clean that piece up after I cut it, which I should have done, but it's got a couple little jagged edges on it, so I'm going to put a pair of gloves on real quick. Go ahead and tighten this up. So as you begin to roll that bead in there, it will curl up a little bit on the edges. So all I do is just bring it around and push those edges back down. Go a half a turn more. half a turn in it. All right, so that's the finished product. It's got a little bend to it, but that'll straighten out. And yeah, I used a rusty piece, but it put a really nice bead in it, nice and consistent. I made sure before I did this last demonstration that I had the other bolt on the back of the machine tight that I didn't tighten in that first one, so that way you don't get any walking where you start out. But really puts a nice bead in, and of course, from there, if you want to do some more beads inside. And I have a lot of thicker material here. I don't have any real thin stuff, but definitely you can go ahead and put the cutting dies on here and use this on thinner material to cut your circle out. So I hope you enjoyed this. Very easy to do. Just I think the hardest part was milling the slot in there, so that's something where if you don't have a milling machine, you might have to either drill holes in this bar and just be able to do the circles at certain sizes. So maybe you have a 2-inch circle, a 3-inch, a 4-inch, like that, or take it into somebody that has a mill and have that slot put in. But very handy addition and very, very easy to do. Piece 3/4 by 1 and a couple of pieces of 1/2-inch plate. Piece of DOM, a couple of bearings, and a 1/2-inch bolt, and you're ready to make circles. Thank you.